So walls are like one of the most important icons in like comments and like orders that like we have to work with them to technically build up our plans, our buildings. And it is somehow like a bit complicated. Like by complicated, I mean that like we're supposed to make sure that the setup that we're planning for our walls is actually working well from the very first beginning. So then, half the way through the project, we're having this peace of mind that whatever wall that we're having, it's actually getting categorized in a proper way. Even like in a simple like residential place, we're having different sort of like wall compositions. For example, a wall getting shared between bedroom and like bath, a wall getting shared between dining room and like balcony, whatever, facade and like an interior, right? So all these walls are having their unique, technically, wall composition. Now let's move on to this wall composition and see what actually needs. So here, if you go on Architecture tab, you're having wall icon up there, right? So if I click on there, like the drop down will show up wall architectural, structural, and lighting. You're gonna get stick with wall architectural. It's always the same thing if you click on the icon. So instead of just like selecting the wall and just like stick with planning the wall or like drawing the wall, first we want to set up our wall. To set up our wall, what is first is important is to have a look on the wall categories or like wall different compositions that. So those are the wall compositions that Revit already prepared and like is having in it as a default version, right? So definitely pretty um, like we're having like pretty good options here. But what if like let's say this category that it is there, it comes no use to us. Like I want to go with another wall configuration. Then, which is always like the case, what I'm supposed to do is to get stick with the most default one, like the generate 200 millimeters, and start to build our own wall composition version from scratch. So that's how I'm supposed to do that. In order to do that, it's actually super easy. I'm just gonna, once you know that you are on basic wall generate 200 millimeters, you go on edit type, right? This window will show up. First of all, you just make sure that the actual wall generate 200 millimeter is not going to get touched, and these settings are all going to come to another new version. I'm supposed to do the duplication. So what I'm going to do is to click on duplicate. So you simply click on duplicate and the name pops up. So for example, I'm going to like put on a name that this wall composition technically going to have. So what I'm going to put, for example, like we do an example for like an exterior wall, which is going to get shared with like a bedroom wall, or like a facade wall with the bedroom. So I'm just going to put it as exterior and bedroom. That's like what I'm going to name this. So as you can see here, we can have like different sort of wall compositions. So whenever I just want to like choose between them, I know that, okay, like if I want to right now do an facade bedroom wall, which getting shared between them, I just like go with that. If I want to do like an, let's say dining room and bathroom, I just like get stick with that one, right? So it's pretty, would be easy from then on. So I click on OK. Now, as you can see, no longer I'm having the generic 200 millimeter wall. It's only exterior shared with bedroom, right? Now, in order to start set up the wall composition, where I'm supposed to go is to next to structure, right? Here, next to structure. So I come to here, I click on there, right? And this window will show up. To just having things like more visually, so I can see that like what sort of like wall composition and layer is supposed to be assigned to where, I'll just like put on the preview on. So click on preview, and as you can see, you can have the wall composition there. So here, as it is, as what is up is here, I'm only having like one wall composition with a thickness of 20 centimeters or like 0.20 meters. For that reason, I would be only seeing one layer. And this is like the floor plan. I'm seeing like from top down, right? So that is the thickness of the wall, which only contains this layer, which is actually like a generator. So first of all, I'm having function here. I'm having like material, thickness, wraps, and structural material, right? So first of all, I need to have my design detail on, meaning that for this specific project, for this specific wall composition of bedroom shared with the facade wall, I need to have the wall specification, right? The specification means that it shows me, like in the detailed design drawings, in those sort of like documents, it shows me that what is, let's say, the first layer, what is the second layer, what is the third. So you're not yet supposed to design stuff. At this point, you're supposed to have this stuff and then try to model this off. But since right now, the case is we don't want to design stuff, we just assume that we already have the detail and we just like want to insert that into our software, right? So I'm assuming that for this specific wall composition, we're having 3 layers, right? Or kind of like 3 layers. So I just like start to insert at least 2 more layers, as you can see, right? So 3 layers actually added, but on this like visual thing, you wouldn't be able to yet see that, right? The reason behind that is that the thickness is on 0. So if I start to add some thicknesses, so for example, for this one, I want to put, let's say, for example, 0.2 meters, right? For the other one, I want to put it as 0.5. And for the last one, I want to modify that to for example, 10. As you can see, all these layers would be customized right now. So the thicknesses are different. Now, let's assume that the wall detail that I will be working on, like I'll have just like this in mind, that, for example, from the very far end, from here, I will be, since this is the facade, for example, I'm having like a stone facade, right? So some sort of like tiles and stuff is getting there. So then I'm assuming that once this is the case, then behind that, there should be like another layer that should be get stick to these wall tiles, right? So it should support them, like a material within sort of like concrete or, like some sort of that would be gluing these tiles to the walls, right? So for that reason, I would be stick with this 5 centimeters thickness for the back one. Then I'm assuming that layer to be sort of like a structural part of the wall, meaning that it would be get assigned to masonry brick that we're having on our project or stuff, right? So the masonry blocks, those sort of like blocks should be getting assigned to that. So this is mortar, this is tile, this is the wall masonry bricks or blocks that are getting there. So here, now I'm supposed to add another layer. So I add another layer here. Let's put that again at 0.10. The last one, I'm supposed to have, let's say, a finish layer here, meaning that I want to have, for example, a gypsum. So I want to put it as 0.2. Well, 0.2 like seems rational, but like it's just like an assumption. So again, I'm having like a finish layer here, which yet I'm supposed to assign a function, just like saying hypothetically what's getting happened here. I'm having a gypsum, I'm having like a masonry blocks, I'm having the mortar, and I'm having the facade tiles. That's how we're supposed to do this stuff. So here, now I'm about to set up the function, meaning that the wall composition function that happens to each of these layers. So I'm going to put this as finish 1, 4, or 2, 5. Doesn't matter which one you go with. Just like the important fact is that you need to be clear in terms of like which finish is getting assigned to which. That being said, so I'm having, let's say, the interior finish under this, let's say finish 1, 4, the exterior under finish to file. So the reason behind that is only to distinguish between these two finishes. So I'm going to put this as finish to file, for example. Then I know that this is actually the structural, those sort of like masonry blocks that I would be using. So I would rather to stick with structural at this part. The next would be mortar. So let's say among the stuff that I'm having here, I would rather to stick with substrate here. So I'll put that as the substrate. And for the last one, since this is the tile, I would go with finish 1. So that is right now the way how I'm supposed to assign the functions. Just one more thing that is super essential and important in terms of like doing the function is the core bound. So as you can see, we're having some core boundaries here, right? These core boundaries doesn't have any sort of thickness. So it's some sort of like illusionary or like some sort of like assumptions that it actually does the backseam calculation for Revit. The way how I usually do that is I actually distinguish or differentiate the finished materials with whatever left inside. So that's the way how I usually set up and like organize stuff. So what I do is to simply click on this number, I hit on up, and I put it up there. So as you can see, and a simple green line is getting show up between finish to 5 and the rest of the layers. I'll do the same thing here with finish 1-4. So as you can see, another line will show up. That's the way how I differentiate the finished layers with whatever it is left inside. So right now we're all good with the function, we're all good with the thickness. It's time to get to assign with the material. So the way how we're supposed to do the materials would actually very important, and a lot of people like doesn't have any clue how to handle material. And for that reason, they would be ending up with materials like showing up all of a sudden, like the material that was supposed to be on the table, right now it shows up like on a wall because they don't know how to differentiate between these materials and making sure that everything has their own version, customized. So to assign a material into a one layer, what I'm supposed to do is actually click on one material composition that we're having. So for example, the very first layer that I want to work with, it's going to be the wall tiles that we're having. So to assign the tiles to my walls, I'm just like supposed to bring my pointer close to this material here, right? So nothing is yet appeared, but once you click there, like in small, as you can see, square will show up, right? So you click on it, and as you can see, this window will show up as easy as you can see, right? Again, let's do that again to just make sure that you're fine. So as you can see, we're having like a rectangle here, but yet is not visible. Once you click on it, it will show up. So click on it, so you would be able to see the material composition or like setup here. So it is very easy to go and choose from one of these materials, right? It would be like really easy to do that. But as what I said before, we need to differentiate between our material because definitely what comes with the floor, what comes with the table should stick to that element, but shouldn't like come up with different other elements that we're having, although they might be sharing same material, right? So although like we're having like wooden flooring, although we're having like wooden table, like the door is like wooden tile, but they should be, and also like they might have the same appearance, but they should be differentiated. They should be like customized to their own version because definitely the setup is very different from each other. How we are supposed to do this like setup or like do this differentiation is to create an is to always and always create our own new material. So once you come to this window, you click on this, right? And you put it as create new material. So you click on create new material. As you can see, the default new material will show up. So the very first thing that I do, I just simply go on identity tab right? You go on Identity tab, and up there you can actually type the type of the material that you're using. So since I'm using tiles, I'm gonna put as, for example, facade tiles. That's what I want to have. Or if you're having like another more specific name, you can definitely put it on. Also, later on, we will tag all these materials to have like the design specifications, right? So what I do is to copy paste the same thing under the description. If you handle it like from the very first setup, it would be way more easier to just like return and do this stuff like all over again later on, right? So to just put it on description here, and you're done for this part. If you're having like more information, you can definitely add on, right? For like URL, cost, or whatever things that like you guys might have already provided into like the catalog and like stuff, you can put it on. But like it's not that important right now for us. We'll jump to graphics. To graphics, what is important here is that once you're not having the material with the actual material, meaning the visual style is not unrealistic, this comes to use, right? So for example, you're viewing stuff on a black and white setup, on floor plan, on sections and stuff, and you want to give a clue to your audience that this wall that you can see, it's actually, or this material that you can see, it's actually tiles, right? So you will do some setups in terms of like the 2D frames, right? To give that like sense to your audience. We're gonna like get back to here once we know already the size of our tile. So let's right now stick to the appearance. So first of all here, what is important for us is to assign that sort of material, that sort of tile that we were looking for. To do that, you just simply go with replace this asset. So once you come to the appearance, you just simply go with replace this asset. You click on it, right? You click on it and this window will show up. I personally suggest to always and always go with the second category, with the second folder there, as it's already having tons of material. So I just like open up the drop down for appearance library, right? You can see different styles and different materials on, depending on the material that you're searching for. So I'm searching for tile. And since this is like a facade wall, I wish to have like a stone tile. That's why I'm getting stuck with the stone there. Even for stone, you can open up the drop down and go with like different style of stone. So from here, I just like scroll down till I just like simply end up with Travertine cream. For example, this is the one that I actually wish to have it on my tile. So to replace it with your own material, you can either double click on it or click on replace that, right? Once you do that, you can see that that cube is actually getting filled up with that material that you just chose, as you can see, right? So the type is masonry, meaning that I can either like choose CMU or masonry. Sometimes in terms of like the backup information or like the visual weight might be a bit different. So go with whichever that you're looking to technically have according to your own design specifications, right? And this is the pattern that Revit is actually using. This is the image that technically Revit is using for that material, meaning that Revit actually has like a big library of all the images that uses as your material, right? So what we have for our Travertine is this one. Now, another super important thing that you guys need to know is that how we would be able to simulate the bumps and stuff. So although we're having this material, but yet it doesn't mean that like all those sort of like bumps and ups and downs, like you would be able to visualize. So the technique that how Revit uses to actually simulate this stuff is through the black and white dot point. So for example, with this like black and white image, which is actually like a split image of like the same material that we're having up there, Revit will simply simulate all those bumps and all those like up and down, so you can see that where like it's heading to, right? So if you just like add the same image of what we're having up there, you would be able to just simulate the bumps of the same material. But right now, in our case, it's a bit different because what I wish to have is technically some sort of tiles. This one, if I choose, I'll have like an full like big tile, which is not actually practical, right? Like in terms of the construction stuff. So usually like have the tiles with some sort of like setups, like 20 times like 80 or like whatever comes. So in order to actually set up my tiles, now I'm supposed to add another relief pattern, right? So I want to change this. I just want to get stick with whatever it is up there. So I'm actually like saying to Revit that for me right now, it's more important to set up my own tile view as the bump, right? Rather than to just get stick with the natural material the way how it is, right? So it is more important for me to have my tiles on. In order to do so, I just click on this drop down, and as we can see here, we're having something called tiles. If I click on the tiles, what I can do is actually it will show me some sort of like dimensions with the tiles that we're having. So if I come down, I would see scale, right? With sample size, 0.30, 0.30, and this is actually also locked. First of all, I just like click on this to make sure that this is not on, because if this is on, then the height and like the width is always like locked together. Whatever comes on length, it actually applies same to width. So don't want to have that since the size are not identical. So let me say what I wish to have. For example, what I wish to have is a tile of 40 centimeters times to 60 centimeters. That's what I'm looking for, 40 to 60 centimeters. So that being said, each of these tiles supposed to have 40 centimeters on this side and 60 centimeters on bottom side, right? So as you can see, since right now 0.30 actually covers 1, 2, 3, 4 tiles, right? So if I wish to have this tile with 0.40 centimeters, then what will be the math behind? So the math behind would be 40 centimeters times 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4 times 0.40, what would be? 1.60. So I'm going to put on 1.60. I actually should like flip this value. So I'm going to go here with 1.60 down there, since I wish to have here 0.40. And I wish to have 0.60 as my bottom dimension. Again, 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 times 0.60 would be 2.40. So I'm going to put it as 2.40. Again, I did that like vice versa. So I just like supposed to put here 2.40 and 1.60. Now we're fine. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 times 0.40, 1.60, 60 times 4, 2.40. So right now I'm having the tiles with 0.4 and 0.6 at the bottom, right? That's the way how I want to tile my stuff. There are like other different settings in terms of like rotation, or like somehow you would be able to technically make sure that, for example, at the corner walls, if you're having like some sort of like leftovers, right? So you can always like move like the whole ties left to right, up and down, to make sure when it comes to that corners, you're having like some sort of like small leftovers or not, right? But like right now, let's just disregard this stuff and simply like stick to the basic and principal stuff now. So I'm gonna click on done. Here, if I just like simply bring that down, I will be able to see the tiles. So right now the tile is getting exactly assigned to this corner. For that reason, you wouldn't be able to see here on this tab, right? But like on each side. But like on the corners, these sort of lines are getting accurate. So if I click right now on apply and I click on OK and another OK, you just see what you guys have and go back to the 3D view, put it on, for example, realistic. But you guys can see right now the actually tiles that getting happen. So right now we're good with the very first layer of what we have. Again, I'm gonna go through my wall setting, edit, like the same facade tiles that we had. So we're all good in terms of the appearance, what we had. Now, what I want to do is want to make sure that the same setup will apply once I am on graphics, right? So whenever it's not actually on realistic visual style, it is on like hidden lines or like consistent colors or whatever, yet like we'll see the tile lines. So what I'm going to do is going to go with the graphics, going to click on use render appearance. As you can see, the same color of your material will automatically be assigned, right? Here I'm having surface pattern and I'm having cut pattern. So there is actually a difference between the surface pattern and cut pattern. Surface pattern is what you see. So if like you're having like a wall like face to you, that's actually the surface pattern that you see. But if you do a section, if you cut off like a wall and see that from the side view, then what you see, it's actually the cut pattern. So right now, what is important for me is to first set up the surface pattern, and I just want to make sure that it is compatible with our cut pattern. So I'm going to click on pattern here. Once you click on pattern, this will show up. I'm going to put this as, for example, crosshatch. And once you put it on crosshatch, what you can do is to actually modify the tile pattern. So I'm going to click there. And then we're having line spacing 1, line spacing 2. So if you remember, we were having like 0.4 and 0.6. So what I'm going to do initially is to put this as 4 and put this as 6 and see what happens. Seems like it's actually close to what we're looking for. So we'll stick with these settings. We'll go and check. If it matches, then we're fine. If not, we'll get back here and make sure what is the, like we figured out the math behind. So let's click on OK. Let's click on OK again. And let's assign a color. So I'm going to, for example, assign the closest color that I have. For example, something like this. I would rather to have the same thing for background. So yet I'm going to put it for here, 4 to 6, the same color. Click on OK, apply, OK. So right now, if I put this as consistent colors, as you can see, the same style that I was having with the realistic version, it's actually getting assigned to the consistent color. So now I'm going to get back here. We're pretty much done with our first layer. So getting back to there, we're all set up with the appearance. You're all set up with the graphics. I just want to make sure that if like someone cut, let's say, the wall, they would be able to distinguish this material with the way how it is. So the very first sense of it will be appearing up there, right? So for example, if I do a pattern, for example, I'm just going to stick with the same thing and put on the same color. Let's do the same and apply. As you can see, these files will be showing up there. So I'll have like this sense that, okay, this layer is actually assigned to this file. This is, I would say, the most sophisticated, the most complicated way how you might have like a material. Most of the cases, it's pretty easy. For example, if you're having a gypsum, if you're having like masonry blocks, You actually like go there, you replace this material on, and that's it. No need to like do all these modifications. But here, what was the case was that the Traventine stone that we actually assigned wasn't having, let's say, the tiles naturally on, right? So since we weren't having, let's say, the tiles on, we were supposed to create like that customized tiles on. For that reason, was getting like a bit complicated. But most of the case, the material itself is actually good to go. So right now, we're all set for graphics, appearance, identity, and we're actually like good. Here, it's also like some other options to add the physical and thermal setting. What comes to use here is that for the purpose of like heating and cooling, like calculations for like energy analysis and stuff, these settings needs to be consistent, needs to be compatible with, let's say, the setup that you put on. So you actually like click on them and you would be assigning the same material, or you can like fill up those, let's say, information with whatever you have on the catalog. So that's it pretty much for the very first layers. Now, starting from now, we just like go and set up almost like the same procedure for the rest of the layers that we have. So what I have next is mortar, right? The thing that is supposed to hold or stick or glue these tiles to the wall, which actually like pretty easy. You guys will see. So simply click there. And again, I'm supposed to create my own material. Otherwise, I will jump through the same facade tiles and I will just simply mess up what I already have here. So the same materials would be assigning to both of them, which would totally a mess. So to just avoid all these stuff and errors, I would create my own new material, right? So here again on identity, what I'm going to do, I'm going to write it down as, for example, mortar. Then I'll copy paste the same thing under the description, right? I'll jump on the appearance. I'll go on replace this asset. Again, getting stick with the second folder there. And this time I'm going to go through the concrete one. So from the concrete, whatever that comes more used to you, that would more look like the mortar one, for example, this one, I'll choose so. Doesn't matter really what the appearance is like, because it's actually like you guys wouldn't be able to see the appearance, right? Because it's getting stick between two layers. So just like to have the set up the information on, right? It is important to have this concrete. So you guys are open and like welcome to go with whatever sort of like concrete option that you might have. Also down there are some sort of like other setups like transparency, cutouts, self-illumination, bump, which is actually the same as relief pattern, and reflectivity and stuff. So depending on the type of material that you're dealing with, you can actually add those options. And it's pretty easy to figure out what like each of them is like. Now, to just make sure that deliver like this, the object that we had here, the objective, or since I'm done here with the appearance, I'll go with the graphic. Again, I check this box, use render appearance. So as you can see, the same sort of color that I somehow chose for my mortar material will show up. Again, here, another thing that I just want to mention here real quick is that for the pattern type, if you're dealing with the surface pattern like foreground, you have this option to go with model. So model will give you, let's say, some options that are more complicated, more like improved and like upgraded patterns. For example, if I'm dealing with bricks and like I'm not having the tiles to manually like set up my tiles, I would rather to go with model and assign that, right? If I'm having like blocks, I would rather to go with this stuff. But like this model thing wouldn't be active if you're working with cut pattern. So only and only on surface pattern and like you have to see whether like if it is activated on the background or it's only like for foreground. You will see that. So right now, since we're actually like working with Mortar, I'm gonna go with this one because I actually would think that that would be kind of close to the pattern of like the actual material that we have. So I click on it and I assign some sort of like color. Like for example, the black one would be fine. The same thing, as you can see on the background, the pattern type, the model is not activated. So it's only and only for foreground surface pattern. Again, I'll go with the concrete, which kind of would be the same thing. It's always like better to make sure that you're having the same thing. So if you're having the same, then stick to the same thing. I'll go with black. And same for the cut pattern. As you can see, nothing too crazy, nothing complicated. It's actually pretty easy, right? Only for tiles was a bit complicated, which actually right now, I think that once you guys like watch the video and get the math behind, you will be all fine. So identity is set up, graphic is set up, and appearance is set up. Again, if you wish to add the physical and thermal, if you're supposed to, like the level of the development of the project is, let's say, in on a scale that after that the project is going to go through the mechanical design, through the other like energy analysis, then definitely you're supposed to set up the physical and thermal. Right now, we don't mind. Let's click on OK, and as you can see, the second layer just got assigned. Now let's do the same thing, exactly applies to the masonry blocks. So go there, create new material, go on identity. This time I'm going to put it as masonry blocks. Same goes with description. Gonna go with the appearance, replace this asset, click on here, and I would simply go with masonry. Masonry, for example, CMU, and from those that I'm having, for example, this retaining wall would be working. Right? The pattern is actually like visible there. So it is exactly the concrete sort of blocks that I was looking for. So we're all good in terms of that. I'll go with the graphics. For the pattern, I'll stick to the model. Among them, I would rather to go with the blocks. For example, this is the block that we're looking for. And we simply put on a color on. Not always it has supposed to be like black and white. You can also like use color stuff. Like why not to go with the orange one? So I'll choose the orange for that. And again, if you can see, for example, this brick work could also do the job for me here. So I'll stick to this brick work. Just make sure that the color is actually compatible between all these versions, because that's the way how you're supposed to recognize different, let's say, same materials from different views. Brickwork, the color should be here again on orange. Brickwork, same. Again, as you can see, identity done, graphics done, appearance done. Click on OK. Last but not least, the gypsum that it's supposed to get applied here. So again, I'm going to go there. Definitely the first step, create our new material, identity. This time I'm going to put it at gypsum, or let's do something else. Well, it's actually pretty soon to do so, but what if you're having, let's say, gypsum already there, and we have this peace of mind that whatever sort of gypsum that we're going to use through this project is all going to be identical, meaning that we wouldn't have two different types of gypsum. If that is the case, then you can like feel free to go and choose through the already prepared like available gypsum here. But if you think that okay, like I'll have like a gypsum for my wall, then again I'll have like another type of gypsum for ceiling tiles, then you have to create your own. So right now, let's stick with what we have and create our material. Gypsum walls. That's the name how I'm going to put it on. I'll go on appearance. To just make it much more easier, I'm gonna go with paint here. You can go and scroll down and see if you can find, let's say, gypsum, but right now I'm gonna get stick with paint since it's like an white blank paint, right? I'm actually all good with what I have here. So I go back on graphic, check this box on, and start to assign your gypsum one. So again, for example, on model, if you wish to go with them, it's not the case right now. So I would stick with gypsum plaster and start to assign the material. For example, this time I'm going to go with, again, scroll down, try to see gypsum plaster, and put on the color. The color is not the same, so I would rather to have the same color. Right, like that. Last, gypsum plaster. Let's do that to here, and then assign the color all at once. As you can see, identity done, graphics done, appearance done. You can definitely, again, talk about like the physical and thermal. It's not the case right now, so we click on OK. And as you can see, all of our material compositions are already assigned. So now we're 100% sure that this is the wall composition that we're looking for, and we're all good. So we click on OK, another OK. And as you can see, if, for example, I just like turn the other wall, since I was having the gypsum at the other end of the wall as the other finish layer, as you can see the black, like the blue gypsum plaster pattern, right? And if I put it on realistic, so that was like the gypsum that was looking, and this is the Travertine tile walls that I was, right? The rest, it's actually like covered in between, so you wouldn't see that unless you do a section there. So let's do an hypothetical section box here to just give you guys a clue that what it would be like to have a section. See here, we can see different layers of this wall here all in. Also, I can put it on consistent colors, right? So if like this wall is getting sectioned, you would be able to see all sort of like cut surfaces, or let's say materials that are already designed. So I hope you guys find this video useful, and please don't forget to subscribe if you haven't done it yet, as I'm always constantly updating the contents to make sure that you guys are getting to learn new stuff and tricks. Thank you.